Who doesn't love Formula 1 games? If we look back at the long history of video games dating back from the early 8-bit and 16-bit consoles, you can see many of the unique elements that were brought forward that tried to reflect on the iconic racing series that we would all grow up with and adore over the generations. And F1 games would come into their own during the 32-bit era in the 90s, more predominantly on the original PlayStation console with the original Formula 1, Formula 1 97. We won't really talk about Formula 1 98 all too much, but then with later entries in the series, that would become some of the best racing games on the system, some of the most authentic experiences, and some of the best visual masterpieces that you could see on any console at that time. That gave you a feel of being able to witness and experience the whole adrenaline rush of the iconic sport, but in your living room, and where you can feel and be part of the action. Like when we look back, you had access to all of the original cars from the different seasons, with access to all of the drivers and unique commentary, especially from the likes of the legendary Murray Walker, among many other commentators. But again, these games would evolve as the console generations would evolve, which would see many entries being added to the PlayStation 2's catalogue over the years as well. And another entry that would be one of the first to be released on the PlayStation 2 would be Grand Prix Challenge, that saw a release in Europe in the year 2002 and later in other regions in 2003, that was published by Infogrames and that catered to all of the drivers, cars, circuits and all of the initial stats and features from the 2002 Formula 1 season, with the game given access to various levels of difficulty while adding in variable weather conditions, fuel usage, tyre wear, interactive pit stops and other various car setups and tuning features, with access to a variety of different modes from time trial, single Grand Prix, championship, to allow you to play through all of the season's races, plus the Grand Prix Challenge mode that consisted of mini championships that increased in difficulty with each time you play, along with a 2-player split screen multiplayer mode so that you can play against your mates. So this game, like many other F1 games of its calibre, managed to capture the authentic feel and nature of the F1 racing series that we would have grown up with seeing on the TV, that still gave you all of those cool characteristics with the commentary, the scenarios, the environments, even down to the iconic engine sounds of the cars during that period, which we all remember growing up. That was one of the best things you could have heard on the TV at the time, especially for myself growing up, looking back, always watching the Formula 1 races on a Sunday afternoon and just listening to those iconic sounds. I don't think you'll ever forget them. So the chance to be able to play and hear those sounds for real in a video game was definitely something you had to experience. So Grand Prix Challenge, like many other games, does give you that ability to witness and experience all of those elements. The game itself did receive generally favourable reviews across the board with magazines, as, like I said, it did capture the authentic nature of the F1 characteristics, which was perfect for fans. And while the game is not an official Formula 1 game itself, but it does have all of the licensed elements which definitely fit into the whole dynamic of what the game is trying to do. And for its time as well, for a very early racing game on the system, even for myself personally, I have to say, considering this game is over 20 years old, visually it's very impressive and it holds up still very good today. If anything, for its time, it was one of the most visually impressive racing games on the PlayStation 2 platform. It would only have been bettered with later Formula 1 games and even with the likes of the iconic Gran Turismo series as well, as they would have brought everything visually to a whole new level. But still, the early entry points with the use of these games here were definitely a step in the right direction. So when you got access to the cars, depending on the teams, you could pick your favourite drivers, but one of the cool elements was the in-car views, being able to play and race inside of the cockpit so that you could see the steering wheel and see the aggressive nature of the cars when you were driving them, how you had to fight with the steering wheel in order to keep it on the road, and the sense of speed was phenomenal as well. But you could also change the different viewpoints to your own play style pretty much. Now my preferred play style, more so on older games, would have been a distance view behind the car, whereas with these type of games here, with newer entries, it was always kind of like the view you see here on screen with the cockpit view or like the bonnet or just the camera, the front view. The sense of speed and realism of that was incredible for its time. You got a real sense of what it would be like to drive a car for real, which was crazy when you think about it. And for what it's worth, it is a decent game. Now I will say this, it probably isn't the best Formula 1 racer out there, but it definitely holds its own in many regards. and it is a very good alternative to those iconic and more licensed F1 games that would have been seen on the PlayStation. The handling, however, can be a bit on the twitchy side with regards to the cars. It does take a bit of getting used to, and with this game as well, there is no real entry level point for a beginner or a casual player just to pick up and play. If you're just starting out with this game, it will take a while and it will require some patience in order to get used to the handling dynamics. Now with that, you can tweak many of the handling characteristics and mechanics to tune the cars to your own preferences, so you can change how the car feels when you're driving. But if you're just playing the game casually where you don't change any of the features, it will be quite difficult to master, because the handling in many regards, while it is good, it can be very, very twitchy and overly sensitive, so it has almost like an arcade feel in many regards, and probably a bit too much in many cases, so it will require a lot of patience, like I mentioned, just to get familiar with the game. And coupled with that, with the difficulty spike in the AI, that if you don't qualify within the top, say 6 or 10 places, you will struggle to even get near that, because you will spend most of the race at the bottom of the pack. Especially if you're doing short lap races where you're only doing 3 or 5 laps, you will struggle to get any sort of real position. You'll nearly always be stuck down at the bottom, fighting in a dogfight, if you will. But again, it really just comes down to persistence, increasing your skill and having a lot of patience, and over time, if you put time into these games, you will get the best out of them. For what it's worth, it is a very solid racer, it is a very good experience, and it is a great alternative to Formula 1 games. And if you're a fan of Formula 1 in general, this is another entry that you should definitely add to your list to try, especially for experience in early PS2 games in general. It's definitely one to add to your list. It's just a good solid title overall, and you'll find when you get into it, you will start to enjoy it. But aside from that, I would love to know your thoughts of this game if you have played it yourself, or are you a fan of any of the other Formula 1 games that were also released on the system. So be sure to share it down in the comments below. And if you would like to see more content around other types of F1 games also released on the PS2, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel and hit that bell to be updated of future videos. And also be sure to check out the playlist on screen here to see more of those games in action. And as always, I will see you in the next one.